this fight is such a serious beef on a silver platter.
If you go back and look at the first fight and the instructions that I were getting, they were telling me something that I do every single day. They were saying, Colby, breathe. Dude, we breathe every single day. Why are you telling me to breathe? I mean, everybody in this room knows how to breathe.
Colby Covington. Man, he is such an interesting character.
What's good, boys? Episode 198, UFC Tampa. Real quick shout out to our latest subs. If you got here via seeing one of our shorts, hopefully you will stick around for these locks. Smash subscribe, costs you nothing, will likely yield you something. And specific shout out to the homie Paolo Neneve, a recent sub. We appreciate you growing and showing with us. Let's jump straight into it, meat boy. Last week, UFC 310. You went 5-3. Your boy went 4-4. By the way, if you're in a rush, head to the comments. Timestamps are there for UFC Tampa breakdowns. But UFC 310, we should start with the MEATLOCK. Abject failure. Kai Asakura got absolutely smoked by Pantoja. Non-competitive start to finish. We slept on Pantoja. We bought the hype train again. Kai Asakura. What do you make of the Elva MEATLOCK last week?
Yeah, that was truly unfortunate, but honestly, respect to Kai. I mean, first fight in the UFC, he definitely looked good. He wasn't, crapping himself in there with the big show, the big lights. He looked pretty comfortable. He looked really good in the first round, getting away from the takedowns. He was just a couple inches from missing or landing that insane flying knee a few times, and that could have been the ticket to that MEATLOCK. But unfortunately, Pantoja is the Terminator and just had the better night. But I have very high hopes for Kai. He looks very good, and I think we could see him back fighting for the title within the next couple years. To be honest, I think he's gonna do very well in the division. But I'm not too sure if he is gonna be the future GOAT. Pantoja's definitely holding that reign for a bit, it seems.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe I came down a little bit too harsh on Kai Asakura. He did do some exciting things. The dynamic flying knee within the first 5 seconds definitely highlighted that he was game. He was trying to win. He just was at a skill deficiency when compared with Pantoja, who is a champ who keeps getting better and better. I mean, we were talking earlier. Oftentimes you see these champs that dominate at a high, consistent level, but to notice the tangible improvements that Pantoja is making while being champ is a scary thing for most of the flyweight division. And what's next for Kai Asakura? It sounds like you still have some high hopes for him. Maybe they stick him up against Steve Erceg. I think that would be fun. Let's see how good both these guys are. They both had the failed title challenge. Perhaps a fight against each other could be a fun main event. But again, you went 5-3. I went 4-4. Missed Lionheart. You called JV Baseball. Great call. Lionheart, kind of a sad performance. A lot of stuff going on for him. I hope he hangs him up personally. And then the Volkov fight over Cyril Gane. You picked Cyril Gane. You said he'd get a finish. It ultimately was a split decision victory for Cyril Gane. I think it was a crazy robbery. I don't know how anyone scores that fight 2-1 for Gane, but it makes sense that Adelaide Bird was one of the judges. But what do you make of that contest? Did you think it was as big of a robbery as I did, or were you able to rationalize how Cyril Gane got that one done by split?
I mean, like, I've seen worse, but also it was pretty bad. It was almost like Ciro knew that he lost, and then it was very confusing. I mean, the fact that the president Dana White went up to Volkov and was like, "That was complete BS. You won that. So sorry, buddy." It's very rare to see Dana do that, so it must have been pretty bad, and I tend to agree. It was a rough one, but like I've definitely seen worse in the UFC on the judges, but like Volkov said, like maybe the judge just had a thing for Cyril. I don't know. Liked his body apparently.
Yeah, I mean the dude is sculpted like a Greek god for sure, but I mean it's if you pull back and sort of analyze it from a UFC perspective, we already saw, let's say that Aspinall Jones for some reason doesn't happen. We already saw Aspinall versus Volkov. It was non-competitive. Aspinall dominated. We haven't, however, seen Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. So if you are judges that are helping to craft a backup plan for the UFC organization, then obviously Cyril Gane would be your preferred fighter. But that's getting kind of tinfoil hat for sure. Nonetheless, last one, meat boy. Nate Landwehr, our boy, the train, got thoroughly decimated by Korean Superboy. I think of all the fighters on the card, I was most impressed with Doo Ho Choi. He looked to me like a serious contender for the belt. I mean, before he was kind of a one-dimensional striker. In this fight, he demonstrated his strong grappling. He was essentially, he had a beautiful performance everywhere the fight went. So what'd you make of Doo Ho Choi over Nate Landwehr? Is Landwehr done, or is Doo Ho Choi future champ?
I don't know Choi is future champ, but Lambert, yeah, that was a rough one. I hate to see it. Nate the Train is my guy, but I think Nate the Train, he's going through a difficult time recently, and I think he'll bounce back stronger than ever.
I hope so. He's only 36, right? Duo Choi, I think, is maybe 30 or 31. So I do think the ceiling is limitless for the Korean Superboy. And I also hope that Nate comes back with a vengeance because you would hate for him to hop off the tracks. So any last thoughts on UFC 310, or should we swap us over to the UFC Tampa Meatlock?
Yeah, let's get right into the meat lock.
Swap us through then, Meat Boy. It's another Meatlock dog. Last week, Kaya Sakura was unsuccessful, but this week we think we have the Meatlock dog to cash and end 2024 on a positive and productive note. Ottman Azaitar, aka Mr. Potato Head, is taking on Michael Johnson, and Michael Johnson's minus 205. If you're bullish on Michael Johnson when he's a favorite, that is when things can get questionable. It's usually when Michael Johnson is a counted out dog that he tends to fight at a little bit higher of a level. But he's taking on Ottman Azaitar in this one, who obviously is a powerful puncher, similar to Michael Johnson. He's going to be the younger fighter of the two. And while, yes, he's been finished in two straight, both contests that didn't even see a second round, it was against Matt Fervola, who landed just a very early YOLO on him, and then Francisco Prado, who is that young 23-year-old kid who looks like could be a serious threat in the division in a couple years. So two good fighters. Michael Johnson, though, is kind of on his way out. He alternates wins and losses, and while yes, he is coming in off a recent win against Darius Flowers, that was against Darius Flowers, right? So we think Azaitar, after this little bit of a layoff, training with the tough guys that he does, has an advantage in this one, especially as a plus 170 dog against the aging vet and Michael Johnson. So what are your thoughts on this Meatlock dog? Why do you think the odds are so in favor of Michael Johnson? And to those who would be fading this week's Meatlock, what would be their best argument for why Michael Johnson beats Ottman Zaitar?
Yeah, I just don't see a way, washed up, not peak Michael Johnson, kind of just here for a paycheck. It just seems kind of clear. It's going to get this done. It's very hard for someone to sell that to me. Azaitar, he's got absolute bombs in those fists, and I think he's going to send him to the Shadow Realm. Michael Johnson's chin is not the best, and Ottoman absolutely packs a punch, I guess you could call it. And so I think he's going to get a finish. I think it's going to be early, and I think it's going to be often.
Early and often for sure. Obviously, if Ottman Zaitar is to get this one done, the early knockout is most favorable for him. I mean, we have seen Michael Johnson get slept by one punch sleepers before. I mean, his most recent loss was to Carlos Diego Ferreira, and he absolutely slept him with an overhand. And even more brutally was Josh Emmett, but that was a closer fight and one that Michael Johnson was actually having a lot of success in before eating that absolute meat bomb from Josh Emmett. So we know Zaitar is a guy who packs a crazy punch. This dude, all of his wins were by knockout, and before this recent two-fight skid, they were all finishes over pretty bad fighters, but they were early and often, to your point, and performance of the night in a couple of them. So we just kind of think Ottman Zaitar rediscovers that finishing sauce. Tapology's fading us. I don't blame them. Kaya Sakura absolutely fumbled the bag last week, but what do you make of the Tapology odds? 73% are rolling with the menace Michael Johnson. Only 27% is going with the bulldozer. So is Tapology just missing the boat on this one?
Yeah, I think they're missing it big time. I don't know what they're looking at, but I think this just screams upset, and it's like they're trying to get a win for a Zaitar. It's pretty obvious. Get a name, washed up. This should be an easy light work for him, and I love it when a meat lock has beautiful odds like this.
Absolutely, and again, it's been 18 months since we have seen Ottman Zaitar. We are just coming from the perspective that we think he's been refining his craft, perhaps Korean Superboy style, throughout those last 18 months, and he's ready to rediscover that hype. And Michael Johnson is ready to continue his win-loss alternating pattern that he has demonstrated since early 2022, and even had rifled off 4 straight L's prior to this up and down movement. So we like Ottman Zaitar. We're going a little bit heavy. We're closing the year out with a bang. Throwing down 200 to net 340 should get us our 112th meat lock, get us back on track, and give us some momentum heading into the 2025 season. So, any last thoughts on the Azaitar meat lock?
No, this is one of those. Absolute things are beginning to look like Christmas. Dog lock easy work versus a vet that's washed up. Just speaking upset. So meatlock nonetheless.
A meatlock nonetheless. Speaking of holiday upset for sure, swap us through though, meat boy, because Drakkar Close is a fun fan favorite fighter taking on our boy Joel Alvarez, aka El Phenomenano, who, speaking of rediscovering sauce, I mean, Joel Alvarez seems like he's back, right? He had that great momentum, had won four straight, then absolutely got brutalized by Arman Sarukian. And I think a lot of people during that fight were thinking, ooh, maybe Joel Alvarez isn't as good as we thought he was, just given how non-competitive that fight was versus Sarukian. But I think it's since been revealed that Sarukian's just that good, and Joel Alvarez is maybe not on the Sarukian level, but is still at a very high level in this UFC lightweight division, and that's been evidenced by his last two wins, right? The easy light work finish over Mark Jacasey, beautiful Bravo choke in the second round, and then performance of the night finish over Elvis Brenner, who is a dude who's tough as nails, wins a lot of fights by finish himself, and is very difficult to put out given how tough and durable he is. So for Joel Alvarez to get that finish done and prove that against everyone besides Arman, he's going to finish you, I think that's encouraging in this one. But he's taking on Drakkar Close, who, don't look now, but this dude's on a 4-fight win streak. He's won 7 of 8, and his only loss was to Beneil Dariush in that stretch, and that was a fight where he was arguably one punch away from finishing Dariush, and he ended up getting finished himself, but it was a very close fight against Dariush, who was a top 5 guy in the division. So at plus 330, given his recent streak, given the fact that Drakkar Close does cash as a dog a lot, does he have any life against El Phenomenano, or does the Drakkar Close recent spell of success meet a brutal end when he takes on Joel Alvarez?
Yeah, I think Klaus is one of the boys, but I think he's going to get absolutely smoked by Alvarez. I think Alvarez is just such a stud. He's a big dude. He's gonna grapple. He's gonna strangle. I think he gets a finish maybe first, second round. Klaus is a dog though. This is gonna be a fun fight, but I'm gonna edge out on Alvarez on this one, winning by maybe submission.
Yeah, great call. We know Joel Alvarez is a dude who can brutalize you with strikes. He's got those gnarly elbows and kicks to go with it, but it's the submission game that is especially lethal. He can get you from very different angles, and you touched on the size. I mean, Joel Alvarez is massive, right? This dude's 6'3", 77-inch reach, whereas Drakkar Close is technically 5'9", 70-inch reach, so we know that that's 5'7", and 66. So what do you make of how this size discrepancy will manifest itself? Like, do you see Joel Alvarez keeping this on the feet and brutalizing him there, or does he just know I can take this guy down and get dispose of him essentially light work easy if this fight is in the jiu-jitsu realm on the ground? Like, how do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, I think Klaus's only chance is it's got to stay on the feet, decision or
Mm-hmm.
KO. And I think if it hits the mat, I think he'll be just too big of a guy and just be able to ragdoll him wherever he wants. His grappling is pretty insane. Well, there's not grappling, but the jiu-jitsu aspect, it's very high level. And Klaus isn't known to be this crazy wrestler like Arman Sarukian, so I just don't see a Arman Sarukian wrestle win vibe from Klaus. And so I think Alvarez is definitely going to win this one by submission.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm also going to lean that way. I like Joel Alvarez probably early, likely often. I'm usually known to clench and over, but I think that the under 1.5 might be valuable in this one just because that size. I like your point, and I guess we did. The only pushback I could see would be, well, when Drakkar Close fought Joe Selecki, who is a powerful grappler himself, Joe Selecki got absolutely slammed on his dome and got slept by Drakkar Close. But size-wise, those dudes are pretty comparable, whereas Joel Alvarez is just massive, right? I mean, I wonder if Joel Alvarez is even going to make the weight. I mean, we've seen him miss at 155 twice before, so wouldn't be the craziest thing because the dude is massive. So especially if he misses by a couple pounds and has an even more tangible size advantage, I like that to be the difference in this one for sure. So I got Joel. I'll go under 1.5. Can't decide if it's submission or TKO, but whatever numbers would be greater, I think would be where I lean because I think it's 50-50. If he gets it down to the ground, it's 50-50 whether he gets a TKO or a submission. So Joel Alvarez under 1.5. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, no, I agree. I think on one and a half is a very good take, and yeah, I think he's going to finish that really good on the ground. Maybe a submission, maybe even TKO elbows. But yeah, I think Alvarez got this pretty easily.
Yeah, let us know if you agree, or are we sleeping on Drakkar Close and he's going to continue his win streak, which he's been doing for the last few years. It's a great fight, one we're excited for. Swap us through though, me boy, because this one is interesting. It's probably the one I'm most curious to get your take on, because it's Dustin Jacoby, a plus 245 dog who suddenly has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, which I found to be kind of striking. I mean, the one win in there, he finished Kendi Nzechukwu, who suddenly looks like a potential top 10 heavyweight. I mean, just very difficult stuff to glean from Jacoby, who, even in addition to Kendi Nzechukwu, has some pretty solid wins, right? Like my boy Michal Oleg Zaychuk, Iwan Kute Laba went to a split draw, it was very close. Daun Jung, he picked up that performance of the night. So Dustin Jacoby has done some good things, and I was surprised by the odds, given that he's taken on your boy, Vitor Prelimo, who at minus 305 is coming in off his recent fresh loss, his very first career L to my boy Lionheart, who cashed as a plus 425 dog, I believe, in that fight, despite getting absolutely smoked last weekend. So in this not rematch, but return opportunity for Prelimo, do you make Prelimo a minus 305 favorite and expect him to be a parlay piece that cashes with ease because he actually is a guy that has deserved hype? Or did Anthony Smith simply expose this guy and Prelimo is perhaps the next PFL champ or GFL champ even?
Yeah, if Prelimo loses this, he's definitely gonna be the GFL champ. That is for sure. But I gotta imagine that um Dustin Jacoby is not going to wrestle in this one and go for a choke. Anthony Leonard Smith, he got the choke, got the submission. Jacoby isn't really known for his submission game, so I think he's going to be good there. And I like Petrino in this one. He's already learned losing to Lionheart via submission. And this one's gonna be a slobber knocker, absolute KO meat bomb. One of these guys are going out. I gotta imagine that Jacoby's gonna go out again. He just got knocked out by JV baseball player Dominic Reyes, and so I think Petrino has the bombs to throw to absolutely send him to the shadow realm. So I think he's gonna throw a big 1-2 knockout Jacoby, but I don't know. Maybe Jacoby's working on his jiu-jitsu. We'll see.
Yeah, good points. I mean, if the weakness, if the weak spot of Prelimo is the jiu-jitsu department, which I mean, we know he still has a little bit of that game, but if that is his glaring weak spot, Dustin Jacoby's not a dude who's likely to exploit him in that arena simply given his game. I mean, we know him as a high-level glory kickboxer, a dude who has one career submission of his 19 wins, and he has way more knockout finishes than he does submissions. In fact, 12 times as many. So Dustin Jacoby, I think, is going to be out there doing what he does, and that is to strike. Whether or not he's going to have some success against Prelimo in that department, I think is to be seen. But Tapology is overwhelmingly bullish on Vitor. They think, hey, he's only 27. That loss was 8 months ago. He's been in the lab, getting better and better, and is ready to rediscover that hype. They think it's an easy light work finish for him. 14% is going with Jacoby. Do you think Jacoby's donezo, and is he getting finished in this one if you're taking Vitor?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think this is a first round finisher. One of these guys are getting knocked out, but I gotta imagine that Petrino got choked out, not knocked out. Dustin's jaw is probably still soft, so one touch and Petrino should win this.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, if Jacoby does eat something hard and early, then he might go to sleep, similar to how he did against Dominic Reyes. But in this one, I don't know. Something tells me Jacoby's going to find a way to survive those first 2 minutes when Prelimo is dangerous, and then from there, I like Jacoby to land some leg kicks, control the distance on the feet, expose the noob on the feet that Prelimo will be in comparison to the high-level offerings of Jacoby. And ultimately, I'm taking Dustin Jacoby in this one, meat boy. I faded Prelimo when he took on Lionheart, and to me, Dustin Jacoby, if he fought Lionheart tomorrow, I'm probably taking Dustin Jacoby, even though he's lost all these recent fights. I just still don't think that Prelimo is ready for the big dogs in this division, and we'll see if Jacoby still fits that description. I like Jacoby by decision or third round finish. Do you see any life for that, or is this just the return can that Prelimo needs?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Prelimo. I think this is definitely the comeback fight for both one of these guys. Whoever loses is probably getting cut and going to the GFL. So stay tuned. This is gonna be a quick fight. I think this will be a fun fight though, and I just got Petrino barely getting this one done purely because he didn't just get knocked out.
Fair enough, and it could happen again for sure. He's got prelimo. I got the Hanyak, Dustin Jacoby, and whoever loses is for sure the next title challenger for Luke Rockhold's GFL belts. I am ready for that nonetheless. And swap us through, me boy. Co-main event. It's one that perhaps it is the swan song of Cub Swanson, who's taking on Billy Q. And Billy Q's a minus 155 favorite. Cub Swan Song is plus 130. It's a legend versus a fighter in Billy Q who just got absolutely smoked and who has been alternating wins and losses since his knockout finish over Kyle Nelson way back in 2020. So up and down for Billy Q. Cub Swanson is a guy who wins close fights. He loses close fights. He's just a tough OG gatekeeper. So who are you taking in this one? Swan Song or Billy Q?
Man, this one's tough, but I gotta go Billy Q. I think Billy Q, he's on a new arc. He's coming off of that loss, and I think he's got to get this done. I mean, that previous fight was just so brutal for him, so he's got to bounce back and get this one done.
Yeah, he definitely does need to get this one done, and I think if you're encouraged by Billy Q, it's that finish over Damon Jackson. I mean, the Leech is a high-level dude, and Billy Q did look great in that fight, but when he returned a year later or less than, he got really beaten bad by Yusuf Zalal, and Zalal was making his return to the UFC fight. Billy Q was a sizable favorite. It just wasn't a great night for Billy Q, but to your point, maybe this is his opportunity to get back on track, and perhaps at 36, he just has a little bit more left in the tank than Cub Swanson does. But Cub Swanson, I mean, even though he's getting up there in age, he's pretty consistent of a fighter, right? Like he hasn't gotten noticeably worse. I think just his current skill level just isn't at the highest capacity when compared with this new breed of younger fighters in the division. But Cub Swanson has maintained a very high level, similar to Jim Miller, and oftentimes that high level is enough. So do you see a world where Cub Swanson can win this fight? And if so, is it likely by decision?
Yeah, if Cubby wins, it's probably by decision. I mean, he's got knockouts before. I doubt it's submission. It's most likely decision, to be honest. This is just one of those fights where it's probably a very fun fight. It's a great fight, but I think Cub's got to grind this one out, get the decision. I think Billy Q, the longer this fight goes, the worse it's gonna get, possibly. It just depends on. I don't know. It's so hard with Cub being at his age. I gotta go with Billy Q by, I think KO. I don't know. I don't really like it for decision, but maybe Cub's time is up and he's not moving like he usually does. But I think this is gonna be a firework fight.
Yeah, Jonathan Martinez finished him. That was a lot of leg kicks, though, right? Like he was really chopping away, and ultimately Cub Swanson had no base to stand on. But if Billy Q goes out and gets a TKO finish in some capacity, I gotta imagine the odds will be pretty crazy for that. So good call, if so, meat boy. Tapology sees this as a decision fest. 52% going with Cub Swanson, 48% going with Billy Q, and basically beige on both sides. I like Billy Q in this one as well, but I can see this fight going the distance. And when Cub Swanson fights go the distance, we've seen judges provide Cub with rounds that were at least close enough to make the argument for, right? I mean, how many times we've seen Cub Swanson emerge with a decision where people might have been screaming robbery? I mean, I think back to that who was that fight against Hakeem Dawodu, right? Where most, I think 13 of 14 media members or something picked Cub Swanson to lose that. They said that he lost that fight, and the judges gave him the split. So if it does go the distance, I can see the judges giving it to Cub, but I'm going to say Billy Q doesn't get the finish in this one, but manages to avoid judge controversy and emerges with a split decision himself. So I got Billy Q. Any last thoughts?
No, fun fight. Let's get to the main last fight.
Yes, swap us through. It's the meat event. Joaquin Buckley taking on Colby Covington, and it's interesting, right? Because this is a fight where I've been thinking that Joaquin Buckley is going to find a way to get this one done. The dude has been surging at a very high level for a very long time now, and on the flip side, Colby Covington has had multiple title opportunities and has come up noticeably short in all of them. And now it's like, what does he have left? Right? We haven't seen him in over a year. Does he still have the same championship ambition that he had, or just 3 straight title fight L's essentially convince you that maybe champ is not in your equation? What do you make of this one? Is this at plus 225 the rebound opportunity for Colby Covington to remind everyone that, hey, I'm still at a high level. Perhaps I'm not beating Leon or Usman, but everyone else is getting smoked similar to how they were before those fights? Or is Buckley at a new high level and Buckley has the championship trajectory that Colby simply doesn't anymore?
Yeah, this one, this is a fun fight. It's an interesting fight. It's a fight I feel like that's kind of caught me off guard where I was like, wow, this is interesting. I would never expect Colby Covington's next fight would be, this one. But I don't know. Buckley's been looking really good. I've been picking against him last few times, and you know what? I keep with the same trend. Colby Covington's going to absolutely decimate him. I have faith that Colby is still that guy. But there is a chance that Colby's not that guy, and his takedowns and his tech and his speed is kind of gone with time, and not being as active as he usually used to be. And Buckley's been really active, and he's been shown that he can grapple, he can wrestle, he's strong, he's got good striking. I just got to imagine that the level of wrestling just isn't going to compare to Colby Covington, and Colby Covington has insane cardio. I imagine that if Colby Covington does the wrestling pace like he usually does, takedown after takedown, shoot, 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 eventually those strong stuff takedown defense is going to fail. And so I think that's where Colby's going to come in and win. And Buckley and him, they've trained before. I think they kind of already know, but Buckley's been getting a little, his ego's been getting boosted with these wins, so maybe he actually thinks he's got a chance. But I think Colby knows something we don't. On the flip side, maybe Colby's just coming back for a paycheck. It's so hard to say. You just never know which Colby we're getting. If it's the did Colby even train versus Leon type, or is it the Colby versus Usman 1 and 2 where it was just razor thin in both these guys' peak physical times? Um, I gotta imagine that Colby's still there and he should win this via decision um, and in spectacular fashion.
Yeah, a lot of great points for sure. And you mentioned, what has Colby been doing this last year? We heard from Gilbert Burns earlier in the week, who said that he knows Colby has still been relentlessly training in the gym 8 hours a day, every single day. So if we are to believe what Gilbert Burns is sharing, then it seems that Colby will be coming in with the same level of training and that same killer cardio that you referenced. I mean, this is a dude who has been described as having the weaponized pace, right? He's a guy that will overwhelm you with his takedowns, with his strikes on the feet. Never like a crazy amount of power, but just a consistent onslaught of things that you have to deal with. And that has been a weakness of Buckley historically. I mean, when you look at Buckley's losses, his very first one was to Logan Storley, who Snorlax is the Bellator champ. All he is a wrestler, and he took down Buckley with ease, smashed him unanimous decision. And then some of the other losses that Buckley had, the grappling factored into it, right? Imavov was able to take him down and hold him down. Chris Curtis was able to have some success even. I mean, we've seen Buckley struggle in that department, and Covington obviously is the Division One wrestler, high level All American. So in this fight, Colby for a while was, really implementing his grappling a lot, but then he kind of switched to, I thought, a better infusion of strikes as well. In this fight, do you see him trying to close the distance and take down Buckley from the onset, or is Covington going to mix the strikes up and really make this an MMA contest, but still have a heightened emphasis on the grappling?
I think he has to grapple heavy, heavy, heavy in this. Go back to his roots. He's been trying to strike a lot more recently, and I don't know if that's because he's fallen in love with it, or if just time and age has gotten to him, or maybe he's just over the grind. I'm not too sure, but if he grapples, this should be light work. If he tries to stand and bang for majority, I don't know. I'll be impressed because the young, hungry, fighter. He's been striking pretty good recently. So I don't know. We might see something interesting and not good happen for Colby if he tries to stand and bang the whole time.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because of the 75%, by the way, is going with Joaquin Buckley. 25% going with Colby. All the Colby backers are decisions, so they think that he's going to snooze his way through a decision. But of the Buckley backers, it's basically all Brown. So they think that not only is Joaquin Buckley going to go in there and beat Colby Covington, but they think he's going to finish Colby Covington. And that to me was kind of striking because we know Colby as a guy who is pretty durable. I mean, obviously Usman broke his jaw in the fifth round of their first contest, but beyond that, this is a dude who, if he does lose, it's usually by decision. So Are you at all surprised that all of Tapology essentially is picking Buckley to win by KO?
No, I'm not surprised. That's kind of how I see it. I think Buckley is probably going to win by KO or Colby wins by decision. I just don't think I'd be very surprised if Buckley wins by decision. That would really surprise me and impress me. But I kind of see it going one of those ways.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that's actually where I'm going to go, Meatball. I've been kind of flip-flopping on this one. Initially, I was pretty confident on Buckley. Then this week, I've been kind of getting swindled a little bit by this Colby hype and this renewed energy for Chaos Covington. But ultimately, I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going to a little bit reluctantly go with Buckley, especially at these odds. I mean, minus 250, I think, is a little bit too volatile for a guy as high level as Colby is, or at least at minimum was. And so I'm taking Buckley in this one. I do like decision, though. I think that this could be a fight with close rounds, a fight that Covington demonstrates a lot of durability and doesn't get finished, and one that on the flip side, Covington's going to struggle with finishing as well, because I think Buckley's pretty tough, pretty durable, and even though he might get controlled a little bit on the ground, I gotta imagine he'll have the defensive prowess to be able to survive some sort of TKO finish, and I don't see Covington having a submission in his arsenal. So I'm gonna go this fight to be 5 close rounds, 3-2 unanimous decision for Buckley ultimately, and if Buckley's like minus 400 or plus 400 or plus 500 by decision, I think it could be worth a dink because I do think that does have some life. So I'm taking Buckley by decision. You got Colby by finish or decision?
I have Colby by decision.
Right on. We both think it's going the distance. Let us know in the comments if you agree and who you're taking. But this week, Meat Boy, it's the last fight. UFC Tampa. We broke down 5. Are you going 5-0 this week or 3-2? Where are we at?
Honestly, this one I'm feeling pretty good. I think I'm going 5-0.
5-0 for meat. I'm gonna go 4-1. As long as it's not a 500 showing like it was last week, then we'll call UFC Tampa a success. But the last card until 2025, obviously plenty of meat in the new year. Any last thoughts, UFC Tampa?
No, it's not the sexiest fight to end on for the end of the year. I feel like that was last card. That was a really good card, but this is a solid one. It's a fun one, and it's always good to see Chaos Covington come back. I didn't think he was ever gonna come back, to be honest. I thought it was gonna be a long time, so this kind of surprised me. But it's a solid little card. It'll be fun.